Hello, Taylor Elwood, and welcome to the Sacred Masculine Quest. So, I talked about self responsibility last week and why it's important to be responsible for yourself. And today I want to talk about the importance of self love and self validation. And here's the truth: if you talked to me a year ago, you would have discovered that I was just on at the beginning of my journey to self love. I had not really encountered the concept of self-love until then. I was reading a book called Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It by Kamal Ravikant, which I highly recommend. Very transformative book. And I read it because at the time I was going through a really rough period. I had I'd been dumped earlier, that summer, and the ex had reached out to me about a couple of things and kind of twisted the knife in even further, really. And I was at the time I was already doing the sacred masculinity work, but I decided to read this book called Love Yourself Like Your Life Depended on It because I was trying really hard to find a reason to love myself. I didn't feel good about myself. And the realization I came to was that really I for pretty much all my life I hadn't felt good about myself. And so I started this self-love practice where I started telling myself I love myself multiple times a day. I'd go into a room with a mirror and say the same thing. I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. And I would just say this over and over and over again. And some days I didn't believe it at all, and some days it took me a while, and eventually I believed it. And a few days I would start to believe it a little bit easier. And what I discovered is that the more I did this practice, the easier it got, the happier I became as I did it. And it was kind of an interesting thing because before I had placed my happiness on other people. I didn't realize it at the time, but I had this thought in my head. If I only meet the right person, then everything will be fine and I'll be happy. Or if I only get the right job, or if I only have the right circumstance occur. This is a very, 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 very bad form of thought, really. It's nice guy thinking. But let's be honest here, it's the kind of thinking that most people do. It's codependent thinking. And I think really if we look at it, there are a lot of people out there who are codependent to one degree or another. And I'm not talking about like healthy interdependency where you connect with somebody and there is some dependency, like oh, I got, I know this person's got my back, they'll help me out in a rough spot. No, I'm talking about like, well, I can't go anywhere without you. We've always got to do everything together. And not that there's anything wrong with doing activities together. I think it can be a great romantic activity. It can be a great way to connect with somebody. But what I discovered is that what I discovered about myself in all this work is that I didn't know how to be in relationship to somebody in a healthy way. And it was what set me up for the experience I had with my ex, because that person ended up really, and in a very real sense, she was like a sledgehammer. Like it forced me to there was a lot of kind of blunt force trauma in a way. Not that I want to, not that I want to support that. I don't. But sometimes you need to be faced with the issues that you need to work on within yourself. And this person kind of forced it on me in a way that made me like see, oh, here's my problem. Here are my problems. And so I started the self love practice, and I did it for a while. I did it for a while, but then I fell off the wagon, and I fell off the wagon when, big surprise, I got into another relationship. It didn't happen right away. I would say it really didn't start to happen in earnest until after the person moved in with me. But why did it happen? I think some part of me got so caught up in being in relationship with that person that I forgot that I also had to maintain my primary relationship with myself. And the thing that I've been the realization I had is that like if I'm going to If I'm going to be in a successful relationship with anyone else, first I have to have a successful relationship with myself. And I honestly hadn't had it. This is why it's so important to take responsibility for loving yourself. I'm not saying that loving yourself is going to replace the delights or feelings or sensations or experiences that you would have with somebody else, because it won't. But loving yourself teaches you how to be content with being on your own in case you don't find that person, or maybe you find that person, but you realize that they're attached and that the relationship that you would have is actually, would be healthier if you weren't so attached at the hip. Cue to the last month or so where I've been doing the self-love practice again, not because I broke up with the person I'm with. I haven't broken up with her or anything like that, but because I came to this point of realization that if I that oh, I'm starting to see some of these codependent behaviors, and she also pointed some of them out to me, and I'm like, what am I doing here? What is going wrong? And I realized that part of it was I had stopped doing my self-love practice. I'd stopped telling myself before I went to bed at night that I love myself. I'd stopped telling myself when I got up that I love myself. I'd stopped looking at myself in the mirror and saying, I love myself, until I felt that person melt. And it was really a good illustration that how we treat ourselves and the way that we love ourselves is significant, because you can have somebody else love you, and it'll feel good in the moment, but eventually at some point you'll realize it's not enough, and you'll crave more love, crave for them to give you some other form of validation, or something along those lines, and they won't be able to, because no matter what they do, it will not be enough. And this is really the challenge of doing this kind of work, is that in order to do it, you have to be willing to accept what is enough and what is not enough. Part part of figuring out what is enough is actually figuring out how to be enough for yourself. So for me, I started doing a lot of work around self-love. I started telling myself that I love myself. I started validating myself, and I've started doing this again. And the way I'm doing it now is I'm recording a voicemail each day. And what I'll do is I'll put it on my Facebook Messenger, and I'm going to actually do it right now. I'll model it. So I get on my phone, and I pull up my Facebook Messenger, and I send a message to myself. Hey, Taylor, I just want to tell you that I love you, that I'm proud of you, that I believe in you, and that you are doing the necessary work to transform your life and create the life that you want on your terms. You can have it all. You can choose to have a rich, meaningful, powerful life, and you don't have to do it at the expense of your soul or giving away part of yourself to someone else. It doesn't feel right. Loving yourself is the key to moving forward in your life. Loving yourself is the key to having a healthy relationship with somebody else, because when you love yourself, you will stand up for yourself, and you're getting better at doing this. So I want you to keep with it, Taylor. Believe in yourself, love yourself, choose yourself, and everything else will be gravy. So there you go. I've recorded it, and then I can listen to it anytime I want to. And I have a bunch of these videos at this point. So I recommend getting really clear on what you on loving yourself. Choose to tell yourself that you love yourself, and try this exercise of recording it to yourself. Now, at first, there may be part of you that's like, I don't love myself. Like, what do you mean? Like, that's weird. And my response to that is look, it's only weird if you make it weird. This isn't, and yes, I know we can cue in the juvenile humor about masturbation and other things, but let's be honest here. That's not what you're here for. If you're watching this video, you're here because you want to change your relationship with the sacred masculine, and you need help for doing that. So the key thing that I would urge you to do is to remember that how you treat yourself is a reflection of how you treat your brothers. If you want to show up more effectively for the people in your life, if you want to show up more effectively for yourself, if you care about your own happiness, and you care about other people, then you've got to first learn how to love yourself so that you're not putting your needs and wants on someone else, but instead developing a healthy relationship. All right, that's it for this week. I just wanted to share that with you and remind you to love yourself. Record a video of yourself. Do something else to take care of yourself. All right, thank you.